Welcome back, everyone. Now it is my pleasure to introduce someone who has spoken at every one of our previous workshops and whose presentation is always a highlight of the conference. Every caregiver that has been on the at the prior conferences that I've done understands and knows how important is Eileen Poiley and the USF Health Byrd Alzheimer's Institute to be part of this Caregivers Conference, and I just have to welcome her. She is the Director of Education at the USF Health Byrd Alzheimer's Institute in Tampa and has been on the faculty of the university since 1987. Specializing in Alzheimer's and aging, she received her undergraduate degree from the University of Maryland and her graduate degree from Johns Hopkins University. Ms. Poiley directs the Institute's education and training activities for caregivers, healthcare professionals, and the community. She lectures extensively on a variety of topics pertaining to Alzheimer's disease and caregiver issues. She also consults with assisted living facilities on the design for dementia and training for staff. Eileen leads several support groups and is a certified trainer on Alzheimer's disease for the State of Florida Department of Elder Affairs. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Eileen Poiley.
We're in a nice new big venue here. We're growing. Well, it's nice to be back. I hope many of you have been coming each year. This is definitely a wonderful program, and I was really looking forward to it. I spoke yesterday to a group of 250 college students trying to convince them the benefit of going into the field of Alzheimer's. That was a challenge. So I was really looking forward to today because, see, you all are looking and listening. They're all sitting on their phone and texting. So talking to caregivers is my passion. So I was asked to talk today on coping with the stress of caregiving. And for those of you, is everybody here caring for a loved one with a type of dementia? Yes? Okay. I know some of you may have a loved one at home, and some of you may have your loved one in a facility that you moved to a memory care community. Either way, you're still the caregiver, and you're dealing with the emotion and stress of caregiving. Maybe a little bit different stress. But I'm going to go over 5 different areas of things that I feel are really important to help you manage your stress. But before I do, because you're going to be sitting there thinking, oh boy, she really doesn't know what it's like, because I am just so busy, there's no way I can do any of that. So I want you to answer a few questions for me. If you noticed that your car, when you were driving here today, you were having trouble with the brakes, so you stop by someplace and they say, oh yeah, your brake pads are really bad, you need to schedule an appointment really quickly, it's going to be unsafe. Would you find the time to go to a car place and spend 2 hours and get your brakes fixed? Raise your hand. Very good. You don't want to drive without brakes. What if you got a notice from your homeowner's insurance that says we are no longer carrying this policy or covering Floridians, and you have 30 days to change your insurance? Would you just toss it, or would you then start calling around, spending some time getting policies, getting quotes, asking friends where do they go, and giving yourself a good hour or so to get this task done? Would you find the time to do that? Yes. What if your loved one started having some symptoms and was not doing well, and you called the doctor, and the doctor said, oh, you need to make an appointment and come in? Would you arrange your schedule to take your loved one to the doctor the next day? Yes, okay. So when you tell me you don't have time, you're really saying is, I have time for the very important things of safety and my loved one, but I don't make the time for me. So what I want you to do now is you can't argue with me and say I don't have time, because you just proved to me you do when you have to find the time. So now I'm going to ask you, if you had to do something that would relieve your stress or reduce your stress, but took 2 hours out of your time, would you find the time to do it? You're supposed to say yes. Because you just told me you can do that for other things, but you don't always think that, oh, I can't find time to do something for me. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. So that's my first point, because I don't want you sitting here listening going, nah, I don't have time for any of that, because you do. So there's 5 areas that you really need to understand for managing stress and dealing with the emotions of caregiving. The first one, and you already proved that, is to educate yourself. This is a difficult disease, and many of you could be dealing with Alzheimer's, mild cognitive impairment, there's Lewy body, there's frontal temporal, there's vascular. Each one has unique differences and behavioral issues and progression. So you need to learn about the disease. It's a lot easier to deal with something when you know what you're dealing with. If you don't know what you're dealing with, it makes it harder. And then when something comes up, you're more upset because you didn't even understand this could be a potential problem. The one thing you do have to be careful is if you hear things and you go to programs and you're sitting next to someone who's in year 5 of caregiving and you're just starting, don't think that's going to be you in year 5. Everybody goes through this differently. So if you go to any kind of groups, keep that in mind. We always say when you've met one person with Alzheimer's, you've met one. Everybody deals with it differently. So you want to educate yourself. Well, there's a lot of education online. There's a lot of education now in the community. When I started 30 years ago, there was absolutely nothing. So we haven't come far enough in treatment, but the support and education that's available has grown by leaps and bounds. So what is it you need to educate yourself about? You need to educate yourself about how to communicate with a person with Alzheimer's. If I told you right now that I want you to go in the other room and there's a group of people in that other room waiting for you to come in and talk to them, what would you want to know? What would you want to know? What you're going to talk about. What else would you want to know? You want to know who the group is. Would that help you to decide what you're going to say? Okay. What if I told you it was a group of toddlers, a group of teenagers, or a group of senior citizens? Would you talk differently to each group? Yes. All right. Well, the group you need to learn how to talk to is a person with Alzheimer's, because it's just as unique as talking to any other of those groups. And you need to really learn. Caregivers come into programs that I do all the time, and they're so stressed. Oh, now my loved one is in the stage where they're always agitated. They're always argumentative. They're always aggressive. That is not necessarily a stage. That could be actually caused by conversation and communication that has not been appropriate for someone with Alzheimer's. So that is the first task, that if you have not learned effective communication skills and learn the phrase, what it means to live in the Alzheimer's reality. 2 simple, real quick examples will explain it to you. Had a caregiver whose father loved to go for rides. He would take him out for a ride. He said, we'd start out, everything was fine. By the time we got home, he was so angry at me. He said, the first thing, we'd drive down the street, and he'd look over at the building. He says, oh, look at that nice building. That's a really pretty building. We should go there sometimes. And I had to tell my father, Dad, that's Publix. We go there every single week. We were there yesterday morning. That's where you do your food shopping. And now he's angry at me, and he's mad, and then he sees this building that's his doctor's, and I have to remind him all this. By the time we get home, he is angry. I said, because you tried to make him live in your reality, and he can't. So next time you go for a ride, and you drive by, and he says, oh, that is a pretty building. We should go in there. Your answer is, you know what, Dad? You are so right. That is beautiful. It's a good idea. We should go check it out. It doesn't matter if you were there all day yesterday with him. He doesn't remember. You live in their world. If at breakfast time, you sit there and you say, oh, okay, we have to have lunch today, and then after lunch, we're going to go out, and we're meeting Mary next door for lunch. Won't that be lovely? Oh, yes, that'll be lovely. Or we're meeting her for lunch, not after lunch. 11 o'clock comes, you say, okay, we need to get dressed. We're going to go out and meet our neighbors for lunch. We are? You didn't tell me that. Yes, I did. I told you at breakfast. No, again, live in their world. Oh, I'm sorry, I completely forgot about it. I just saw it on the calendar. Now I'm so excited we get to go out and have lunch. Learn to live in their reality. I actually had a gentleman at my support group who every morning would have a conversation with his mother, tell her about the day, and then as things happen throughout the day, she would get angry that he didn't tell her these things. So he started videotaping with his phone their breakfast conversation. And then when they were ready to go out to lunch and she said, "You didn't tell me," he'd show her the video. How do you think that worked? Nah, not well. Made her madder. He thought he was really helping her. No, didn't work. He's an actuary. He works on facts. Well, Alzheimer's doesn't. So the first thing you need to do, number one, is you need to educate yourself. Obviously, we could do a whole day's talk on communication, but you have to understand communicating with someone with any type of dementia is different, and you need to know how to live in their reality and how to communicate with them to, one, maximize their quality of life, and two, decrease their stress level. So that means you do not argue with them and you don't remind them of their deficit. And you just go with the flow. If they don't remember, they don't remember. And you just say, "Oh, I didn't remember we had a doctor's appointment. I just looked at the calendar. Guess what? We have a doctor's appointment." That would be step one, is education. Number two, and a very big one, how many of you have flown on an airplane? What do they tell you to do with the oxygen? Right, put it on yourself first so you are able to breathe and are in good enough shape to help someone else. So raise your hand if you think you take a really good job taking care of yourself first so you're in optimal shape to take care of your loved one. I don't see a lot of hands because everyone's so busy taking care of their loved one. But you're doing, by taking the time to take care of yourself, you are taking care of your loved one. There's no better gift you can give them than a healthier caregiver. So you really want to take care of yourself. The stress of Alzheimer's can affect you physically, and research shows Alzheimer's caregivers are at a higher risk of having a health issue. So you really need to focus on taking care of yourself. Making sure that you go to the doctor. Caregivers are notorious for neglecting their own doctors, keeping up with their own chronic problems and health. So you want to make sure that you do that. The other area of health, not just our physical health, is your emotional health, and that's probably the hardest one of all. In addition to working in this field for 30 years, both my parents had dementia. My father had Alzheimer's and my mother had dementia from other issues. So I know from learning through Caregivers and personally the emotional stress this disease provides. I get it, and I know how hard this is. Some people are better able to deal with that stress than others. But caregiving can cause quite a lot of emotion. It's normal to feel sad, and some people say, "Well, I don't feel sad for me, I feel sad for him," or "I feel sad for both of us." But you may feel sad, you may feel depressed, sometimes you're going to be anxious. Unfortunately, this disease is not always predictable. As you all know that have been doing it for a while, there's always a surprise around the corner, so you don't always know. You can't always control all of the situation. So you need to be able to control what you can, because you know with this disease there's going to be surprises. People feel a lot of guilt if they had to move their loved one to a memory care facility, guilt if they felt angry or if they yelled at their loved one or lost their patience, then they feel angry and guilty. They may feel resentful. This is not how I expected retirement to be. And then they feel resentful. Then they feel angry and guilty for feeling resentful. So the emotions feed each other. If you're feeling an emotion and you're like heavy and you're sad, but you really can't pinpoint what you're feeling, a lot of times people don't realize what they're dealing with is grief. We think of grief as the emotion you would feel when a loved one dies. However, grief actually is an emotion of dealing with loss. not just the loss of the person, but loss. And think of this disease. They call it the long goodbye because, they may say, oh, your husband looks fine. He may look fine, but as you know, come live with us for a week. It's not what they may be perfectly healthy. They may still have social skills, but you may have been losing the companion that you once had. You may lose the person that you could travel with. The person who you could sit and talk with isn't there. They're losing their intellect. The wife who was the social butterfly and planned all these events. So you're going to be losing parts of your loved one. This is not the father that I remember. This is not the mother that was the go-getter anymore. So you're going to be losing parts of them as the disease progresses. For some people, they are able to adapt to the change and learn to live in the moment and to be able to put some joy and quality of life into their loved ones' days and find that joy. But for some people, they get stuck and they don't realize why they're having trouble dealing with it. So if you are finding that some of the emotions that you're dealing with are like a roller coaster, first you're upset, then you're lonely, you're isolated, you're finding, and then sometimes you just don't know what you're feeling, I would strongly recommend the first thing is to go to a support group. Yes, you can talk to your friends, and many friends will be willing to listen. But if they're not dealing with what you're dealing with, they're only going to be able to understand so much. You may have a friend who will sit and listen to you talk, gripe, whatever, for hours, but they may not have the ability to help you learn how to deal with your situation and give you coping strategies, how to be able to find the joy. So you may be thinking, oh, we used to spend our evening watching the History Channel or the Travel Channel and talking about our travel, and now we really can't. So instead, you get focused on what we could do and missing it rather than working through a way to replace it with something new that you can now still do and enjoy. Maybe pictures of certain things where you can both sit and look at of places that you've been. Or just pictures. You have to learn how to, rather than focusing on what you had, focus on what can I replace that activity to still find some joy together. So yes, a friend is good, but you might need to go, first I would go to a support group. If that's not enough, I would seek some counseling, either through a social worker, psychologist, mental health counselor. A lot of clergy are able to do counseling. There's pastoral care nurses at a lot of churches that do counseling. I would reach out to somebody because you really want to make sure that you have good skills to deal with some of this emotion. If you go to a support group, a lot of times people say, well, I went to a support group and I did not like it. Support groups have personalities. I lead several support groups. I have one support group at the office that surprisingly is half men, and some months we have more men show up, which is very unusual. So they find it much more comforting to come back because a lot of times it's more the women that are willing to go. I've spoken at some support groups, and all they do is have a speaker come in, you sit, you listen for an hour, and you leave. That, to me, is not a support group. That's an educational program. So you need to find one that you connect with the people, and maybe there's someone in there. I've seen friendships grow between people at the support group. So now they go out as two couples, and it's very pleasant because they both have a spouse with Alzheimer's, so they're both very understanding of how to communicate, how to deal with it, not to get alarmed of any behaviors that are inappropriate. So I would really encourage you to try and find a support group, and I know there's many very good ones in Pinellas County. Speaking of, I did bring a few things with me. I did bring, if you do go out with your loved one, I just saw it sitting here. I don't want to forget. It's a little card that says, my loved one has a memory impairment. Please be patient and overlook behaviors that may be out of the ordinary. So if you go to a restaurant or you go somewhere and your loved one's getting a little antsy and maybe inappropriate, these really work very well, and I have a stack of them in the back. All right, so I talked about physical health, emotional health. The other thing you need to make sure you're taking care of is your spiritual health. If you were someone who was very religious or just enjoyed going to church or synagogue, wherever you worship, a lot of times caregivers will say, I just can't go anymore. He can't sit still that long. I don't know what he might do or might say. It just doesn't work. I understand that, but that doesn't mean you want to remove spirituality from your life. One, if it was a big part of your life and your loved one's life, it still will be, and it would be something that they would still be able to react to. If you're looking for things to do, take a field trip to the church. It doesn't have to be a day when there's any activity going on. It can be a day when there's nothing going on and you're literally going to the building. But tell me that going to that building doesn't provide you with a sense of comfort. Looking around at stained glass windows, looking around at religious objects, looking around at just the building. Sit down in some of the seats and pull out a prayer book and sit with your loved one and read or sing. Go to the building if you can't go to a service. Now, with everything being online, see if there's something that you can watch online or ask someone to videotape or do an audio tape of music or sermon. Ask if the choir has rehearsals and go during a rehearsal. That way there would be nobody in the congregation and you would still be able to enjoy the music. Ask if they ever come to the home for a prayer group and can bring you something or come in a group. So you want to make sure, that's it for the health. So you really want to make sure that you're taking care of your physical, emotional, and spiritual health. The third thing I want you to do is taking care of somebody with Alzheimer's or another dementia is a very overwhelming and demanding job. And it's a job that you should not do alone. You need to find help and you need to get help. What I find that I see caregivers do is in the very beginning, those of you who may be just new to caregiving and your loved one is doing well, yes, you probably are having no problem. You're enjoying that they still have a lot of abilities, you can still do things, and you're doing pretty well together. But people found out you have your loved one has a diagnosis, and everyone's going to say, oh, I heard about your husband's diagnosis. If you need anything, let me know. And you say, oh, no, thanks anyway, we're fine. You see them the next week maybe or a month later in church, and they say to you, oh, remember, if you need anything, just give me a call. Oh, okay. Well, a year later, you could really use some help now. Do you think those offers are still coming? No, because you turned them down for 12 months. So what you need to do is accept offers of help early on. Do not decline. Get people engaged. You need to form your team of people that are there for you. And you have to remember there's actually 3 areas of help. One area of help is the hardest. Expecting a friend to come over and stay with your loved one for you to leave the house. For a lot of people, they don't feel comfortable doing that. They may not have done their education, which I know you all are going to do, so they may not know how to interact. They may say to you, I would be happy to, but I really don't know. So you may need to have material to educate your friends because they may not know. You get together with friends that you haven't seen in a while. What do you tend to do? Oh, how's everything? How are your grandchildren doing? What are your plans for the summer? What are you going to do for the holidays? We ask question after question. That is the wrong conversation with someone with Alzheimer's disease. So they need to learn how to come over, if they're willing, and communicate with your loved one. And if you say to them, they say, oh, can I offer some help? I'll be more than welcome to help. So there's 3 types. The first is staying with your loved one alone. Many people aren't comfortable in the being with them, and then sometimes they're like a little nervous if they would have to take your loved one to the restroom. That could be an issue. The second thing is you could say to them, look, I don't want to impose on you to stay with my loved one, or Bob, whatever, because I know that could be a little bit difficult. But you know what? I need to do a lot of things. My homeowner's insurance was canceled, and I need to spend 2 hours finding new insurance, remember? So I really could use someone just to sit here through lunch, keep an eye on him, so I can just go in the other room. I have some calls to make, some bills to handle. That would absolutely be so wonderful. So they're in the house, and they're with him. You're in the house, but a lot of times caregivers can say, I could be in the house all day and get nothing I need done. You know, you could say, well, look, I would love it if you would come over. Publix had a sale on chicken and ground beef. I bought all this food. I wanted to do some meal preps and get a lot of stuff ready, but I cannot go in the kitchen and keep an eye on him, and he wants me right next to him. If you could come over for a few hours and sit with him and allow me to actually get things done, oh, that would really help me. So the other area would be if someone says, oh, if you have anything you need, call me if you need anything, would be to help you. Not at all helping your loved one, but helping you. Say, oh, you know what? I have so many errands that need to be run, and it's so hard to take him with me. I can't leave him home alone. Oh, my God, that would be a lifesaver if you would come over and I can give you some of my errands to do. Even if it means telling someone, if they want to help, say, yes, I would love to have some help. Sometimes it gets a little lonely. He takes a nap every morning from about 10 to 12. I would like company. If you would just love to come over and just sit and talk, I would really welcome that. That would absolutely really help my spirit, help me, and boost my day. So you need to come up with things when people offer you help in the beginning. That way, one, your loved one forms that bond and learns to trust that someone else can be there with them. If you wait too long to bring in help, like hiring a home health agency, I don't know if there's any here, but hiring a home health agency is always a good thing to do. Hire someone who can come in for a few hours a day and clean. It's the best thing you can do. And do it sooner rather than later, because that way your loved one has not gotten so totally dependent on you that you're glued at the hip, and they will absolutely not do as well when you bring someone in. If you do it earlier in the disease process, and even if they say, I don't need anybody, you say to them, I'm bringing this person in to help me. I need help around here. I'm retired and I need some help. And that's the approach. You don't say to them. You may have to go through one or two caregivers. You may need to talk to the facility, the home care, and get a good fit for your loved one and see, who they have that's trained and really work with it. You may take one or two people to find that personality fit. I had a caregiver who said, there's no way my wife will ever have someone in the house. Every time he hired someone, she'd fire them before the day was over. Now he's found two people that she doesn't even care if he's in the room. These are her best friends, and they are absolutely wonderful. And he was dead set it would never work. So it may take some perseverance, but you need to really try. And you need to do that early on. Because, again, once they get so dependent on you, and the longer you go, the harder it is for them to let you leave and to introduce somebody. The other thing that causes a lot of stress for families is the family. Dealing with the adult children, dealing with the siblings, especially the one that lives out of town. They may not see how mom is doing. They may not understand the stress. You may be angry that they're not doing enough, they're not visiting enough, they're not helping enough. They don't understand. You have to look at what the relationship was before your loved one got Alzheimer's disease. If it was this adult child, maybe you had a good relationship and you would call them, see how work was going, what their travel, what they're doing, how the grandchildren, and you would chit-chat. What I tend to see is the relationship changes, and what happens is every conversation now is always about dad, the situation, and the problem. Or you don't say anything until all of a sudden a problem comes up and they're not up to speed on what's going on, or they feel left out of decisions. So you really need to work on nurturing those relationships. One way I suggest is to start, if you have the ability to use email, to have an email list to the family. And keep that email to all the, if you have siblings, if there's, any aunts, uncles, whoever, your loved, the different generations, your loved ones, siblings, and your kids, keep that email factual. Say, I want to just keep everybody up to date. Here's how dad's doing, just so everybody knows how he's doing, how he's progressing, and we're all on the same page with his status. Don't put any emotions into this. This is just to keep them up to date on facts. Dad went to the doctor. They did some testing. They said the medication is really keeping him steady. I'm really pleased that he isn't progressing as quickly. Next week, Dad had a fall this week, went to the hospital, all is okay. Have to be careful that his balance is not good, and they told me that he's having problems with his color contrast and depth perception. So you're just kind of keeping them up to date, because when they call on the phone call, "Hi, Dad, how are you?" "Good. How's it doing down there in Florida? Nice and sunny?" "Yeah, it's very nice." They can hold a 5-minute lovely chit-chat conversation, and then the kids are going to say, "Yeah, Dad sounded pretty good." Because no one is telling them. But you want to just tell them and keep them abreast in a factual way. "Yeah, I got up today, and unfortunately, Dad was in the other room for a little while I was in the bathroom, and he flooded the kitchen. So we now seem to think, I think we might have some mold because," the facts, just giving them the facts, not with, "I wish you could come down here and take care of this problem." No emotion, just keeping them abreast of things. Because a lot of times, especially I see a lot of issues when it comes to second marriage and stepchildren. Oh my, that adds a whole new world of stress. Keeping everybody abreast of it, because what a lot of times people don't want is, "What do you mean you're going to move Dad to a facility?" And what I don't like, the wording of what you don't want to say, you are not putting Dad in a facility. You are moving Dad to a memory care community. If you look at the literature from the 1970s, that's what we used to say. Institutional placement, putting them away. How many people of your generation or your parents' generation said, "Promise me you'll never put me away"? Because 50 years ago, all there was nursing homes. And they weren't the nicest all nursing homes. They didn't have the lovely assisted living facilities that we have today. So your wording alone, when you're talking to your family, you're saying, "Dad's been getting up and he wanders out through the night. It's very difficult keeping him in the house. I'm looking into getting some type of locks or something." If anyone has any suggestions for your siblings or your children that are out of state, if there's things that they can research online and order from Amazon, give them a task to do. Let them know. Say, "Yeah, I'm going to the doctor. I'm not sleeping. I'm having some problems because I'm staying awake, throughout the night trying to make sure Dad is safe." So then when you spring it on them, that's saying, "I am really having some problems. Dad is really up. I can't keep him safe. He's fallen several times. I'm in over my head. I'm going to start looking at some memory care communities to move Dad into, to make sure he is safer, and I can step back and still be the caregiver, but not the primary day-to-day, because I can't do this." If you spring that on them out of the blue, they're not going to understand. And now all of a sudden you're going to spend all this money. You're going to move him. Why are you going to move him? "He seemed okay to me," because you haven't kept them abreast of things. So when you use email is not a good source of ever conveying emotional things. You can write in an email, "Oh, I wish you were closer so you could help." Or the person reading could say, "I wish you were closer so you could help." You do not know how a person reads that email. So you do not put anything in an email that could be misread or has emotion to it. If you say in an email, "Dad fell, but he's okay," all they can read is, "Dad fell, but he's okay." There's no other way to read that. So keep your emails, just want to keep everyone up to date. That way, when you do call the family, your phone call should not always be about Dad or about Mom. Some phone calls just need to be a phone call about the grandkids, about the weather. "Oh, I know you were all going on a vacation. I just called. I want to hear about what you did." That's the bonding of the relationship. They know about what's going on with Dad from the email. You need to have a connection. Even if they don't ask you on that conversation, "How's Dad?" You need to have that relationship like you used to. Those are some of the tips that caregivers who have tried it said it has helped. I mean, obviously, there's still going to be issues. There's still going to be disagreements. Sometimes it's very difficult for adult children to visit because it's very hard for them to see Mom or Dad declining. Unfortunately, as the spouse, you don't have a choice, and it's upsetting if your children don't come, or we're not the same. You know, I grew up in this nucleus family, everyone lived in the same community. That's not always as true anymore. So that's just a suggestion for involving the family. You can always go to family counseling if that's something to have somebody else mediate if you need to make decisions that you can do as well. All right, the fourth thing, there's 5 things. Number 4 is planning for care. Okay, everybody here who has a car, do you have car insurance? Yes. Did you spend time looking around for a good policy? Okay, good premium, not too high a deductible, reputable company, good agent, nice, friendly. You put some effort into that, didn't you? Okay. How many of you plan to use that car insurance tomorrow or in the near future? So you actually put forth effort into something that you do not want to use. That's what you're saying, right? Okay. That is called car insurance. We pay for car insurance, hoping never to have an accident and never use that insurance, but we still have to buy it. All right, well, I call it caregiver insurance. The worst situation you can put yourself in is crisis management. You want to avoid crisis management. You say, well, what do you mean by crisis management? I'm not talking, a lot of times caregivers will say, well, I'm healthier than my loved one. I'm not saying that you may precede your loved one in death. I'm not even going there at all. But we saw that there was a huge prevalence of the flu this season. What would you have done if you got the flu and you were out of commission for 1 month? Did you have everything in place prior to that? What if you went to Publix from here and you were talking and walking and you did not see the curb and you tripped and now you landed yourself in the hospital and you have to go through rehab 3 weeks out of commission because you damaged a hip? Do you have everything in place? No. These are things that may never happen, or your loved one may all of a sudden have behavioral issues and you can't deal with it and need a break because you're just overwhelmed and you're starting to notice some of your own health issues. The doctor says, you need a 3-week break. You need to take it easy, calm things down. You need a break. I don't want to see you have a stroke. So what do you do to avoid the crisis? The worst thing to be is sitting in a hospital room or in the ER on the phone making arrangements. I don't know if we have a home health agency. Do we have a home health agency here? Okay. Wouldn't you be willing to, if a family called and said, I really don't need services now, but just as you find car insurance, I'm going to go out and find all the services that are available and make sure I know that if I need a home care, I've done my research. So I'm going to go out, I'm going to get some names. Great place to get recommendations is go to a support group and ask other caregivers. Go to the home care. Talk to the person who runs it. Ask them. Say, I'd like to just start an account, get to know you, feel comfortable that I don't have any adult children here. If something were to happen, I want to know that I have done paperwork, that if I have to, I can call you tomorrow and everything is ready to go. I'm sure they would work with you. You may never need that. But one, there's a lot of home care. Some are very, very good. Some may be not as good. You want to find one that you made a decision and you're very pleased with that decision. So then you're not going to be feeling guilty when you have to make a rash decision. Say, oh my God, I hope this is a good company. I just had to call the first one that I could find. Do it now when you don't need it and you're not as stressed, and have it there. What if you find out your grandchild up north is getting married? And oh, you would absolutely love to go to that wedding. And while you're up there, to be able to spend a week and really visit all these people, but you know your loved one can't. You could find the home care that may cover that. The other thing you want to look at is assisted living facilities. And you may be saying, oh, I don't have to do that. I will never move my loved one to an assisted living. Don't say never. You didn't think 10 years ago you would be an Alzheimer's caregiver. So no, you never know. You may not ever move your loved one, that's true, permanently, but you may need to use an assisted living facility for a month. If something were to happen to you, or you have this great opportunity or a family event, and the family says, Mom, I really think you need to go to the wedding. I think you could use this break, see your family. Dad will be okay. We'll have him in this nice assisted living. We'll stop in. He'll be fine. You really need this. But if it comes to you quickly, where something happens and you've got a plan, do you know which facility is near you that you like? You probably drive by them and have never gone in. It's very hard to look at it when you're at the point of actually placing your loved one. But if you look at them now when you're not at that point and you're just trying to get information, trying to find one that you love the administrator, you love the way the facility looks. Yes, if you ever need us for a 3-week stay, we would be more than happy. Yes, we could do a 1-week respite so you could go up north. Get these names, get the names of a care manager, get the names of places that if, God forbid, something were ever to happen, you have everything in place. You may never use it. It's like car insurance. You may never use it. But if something were to happen and someone had to take over for those 3 weeks and they couldn't move your loved one into their home, maybe your children work and they could not bring Mom into the home for a week, or they couldn't stay with you for a month, you said, you know what? I found a place that I really like. I've got things, I've got cards, I've got names. Here are the people to call. They said, when I have a problem, call them, and I feel very confident in my decisions of these names. I also made a checklist that I have sheets in the back. It's a caregiver checklist that if you are away or if you do need help for any reason, someone is staying with your loved one, to keep a folder of the list of doctors, list of medications, both prescription, over-the-counter, all the medical information, legal and financial. I can't tell you how many caregivers didn't get some of the legal information and didn't get some passwords, computer passwords, from their loved one. Someone said that they knew that their spouse bought burials and did a pre-funeral arrangements, couldn't find the documentation and didn't have any information. Lost. So make sure you know all the legal, the lawyer's bank safe deposit box. If your loved one with Alzheimer's has the key. So make sure these are things that you want to compile it's your best defense against a crisis. So if something happens, you know where all these things are. You know where all your insurance policies are, long-term care, everything. And then also the list of services. So if your adult child has to come in while you're in the hospital, you have the name of the wonderful adult daycare that's in this community that you can take Mom to. She hasn't been going, but I know it's there. If if I can't take care of him, you have to work, call Maria. We've got great services. Keep a list of all of these things, and also include in that folder a list of your loved one's preferences, what things upset them, what things agitate them, what they like to do, what they don't like to do, giving them some preferences. So if someone does have to fill in for a short period of time, you feel confident that you did the work for them. All right, so that's the fourth thing. The last thing, and then I'll open it up for any questions, is words of wisdom. First is, Alzheimer's patients live in the moment, so we need to learn to enjoy the moment. We need to learn to enjoy the moment. Hindsight is 20/20. It's very easy to get upset at yourself because all of a sudden your loved one wandered down the street and you didn't realize it and you didn't have something on the door. Yes, there's lots of things that we can do for safety, and there's lots of things that you can do, but you can't always berate yourself for after the fact. Yes, after the fact you can say, oh, I should have seen that. It's easy to say that after the fact. So just keep in mind that things are going to happen. Some things you will have the ability to prevent and the insight to prevent. And that's part of the learning process, is learning what you need to do to keep them safe. And sometimes things are going to just happen, and you have to forgive yourself for not being able to foresee everything, prevent everything. And you may think afterwards, well, really, I handled that all wrong. I spoke to him all wrong. I lost my patience. Well, unless someone here is a saint and you didn't tell us, nobody is going to ever go through caregiving, someone with Alzheimer's, without messing up, without losing their patience, without saying something wrong. You may be very upset the next day that, oh, I just can't believe how I was yesterday. I was just not feeling well. My patience was so short with him. I argued with him. Keep in mind, he does not remember it. So you're berating yourself over something that in his world didn't happen anymore. So sometimes you have to use that memory loss and stop and say, you know what? I'm sitting here so angry at myself. Yes, okay, bad me. Yesterday was not a good day. We start over today, and we don't sit there and hound ourselves for what we did yesterday. This is a long disease, and you just have to do it a day at a time. You do your best, and yes, there's going to be some days it's going to drive you crazy, and some days you're just going to have to go with the flow and be flexible. One caregiver told me that the secret to successful caregiving is the 3 Ps. Patience, patience, and more patience. That's true. Obviously, you need to be flexible. The rules in Alzheimer's are not the rules with us. I mean, you may be wearing a lovely outfit today, and I'm sure you're not going to get up and wear that outfit tomorrow. But if your loved one likes that color pink, and she wants to wear that same pink shirt tomorrow and Saturday and Sunday and Monday, pick your battles. Be flexible. You know, we like to sleep. We have day clothes. We have night clothes. Alzheimer's, they have clothes. They have favorite clothes. They have comfy clothes. If they like something, they want to wear it. Think about it. Their reality kind of makes sense. They love this outfit, and they want to wear it all the time. We buy an outfit. We love this outfit, and we only wear it maybe every other week. They, make sense, but you have to just decide what's more important. Spending a half an hour to 45 minutes before bed fighting over them getting into pajamas, or let them sleep what they're wearing and go downstairs, put on some music, sing, dance, read some prayers, and take that same 45 minutes and end the evening doing something pleasurable and let them sleep in what they're wearing. And just pick your battles. The last thing is, next one is forgiving yourself. Again, I mentioned it's a very difficult disease. You're going to go through a lot of issues, so you have to be easy on yourself. I see caregivers that can be very difficult on themselves. You need to not focus on what you're not doing and focus on what you are doing. So if you are caring for someone with Alzheimer's, or any other dementia, I want you to raise your right hand. All the way, raise it up. Now I want you to turn it around. Now I want you to pat yourself on the back. And I want you to do this often and remind yourself to pat yourself on the back. Before lunch, I'm going to open up for questions. Anybody have any questions? Yes.
Where's a good resource to go to find someone that can act as a care manager?
I would call the area agencies on aging would be your first source. There's the one in Pinellas, is the area agency of Pasco Pinellas. Someone's pointing, I guess there's a care manager over there. There's an association for care managers that you could find. We have lists at our office of care managers, but I can't recommend them. Going to a support group, you can get a care managers. It's Area Agency on Aging of Pasco Pinellas is the one in this county. That Senior Connection is the one in Hillsborough County. You can... Okay, Department of Elder Affairs that's through the Yeah, so there's directories. Also, Senior Living Guide puts out a publication. I'm sure you've all seen the yellow book, which now has gotten taller. They have a great list of resources, and I'm pretty sure care managers might be in there as well. No, that's only individual, so that's not going to be a conclusive list then. So I would start with Department of Elder Affairs, Senior Connection, and the Area Agency on Aging. That would be a way to get a good list. They could give you all of the ones in your area.
Good afternoon. I have my husband, 10 years, he got a dementia Alzheimer's. And I could give him 7 days a week. And I take it 4 days in Maria's place. He's very happy and he changed. And he come home, a lot of times he don't want to leave Maria's place. And he come home and he says, why you took me away? And all of a sudden he started falling like the sky is down for him. And like you say, the clothes, he wants to wear the same clothes.
Same clothes.
You don't want to take it. I'll give a shower him, I save everything. You don't want to do? He says, no, I don't have to do. Why you push me?
Yep.
I say, I have to take care of you. My children, I have 2 children, son and daughter. You can't accept that the father has got Alzheimer's.
It's very hard.
Very hard, and my husband is a very entertainment person, and he had a very open house, and all of a sudden, sat down. And I don't know how to deal anymore. You know, I'm looking around to find for myself help.
Okay, you said you put him, he goes to the Maria's Adult Daycare Center. Okay,
Yeah.
What do you do? So he's having a great day. What do you do with your time when he's there? What are you doing?
Myself, I take it to that, and then I come home, and I love to work outside. And I like to work. I don't have any friends. Only my church is my friend. And maybe sometimes I have extra time around the beach.
Good.
Walk around 5, 10 minutes.
The one thing I hate to see is when people take advantage of either an adult daycare or they'll hire a home health or respite or someone will come in. They take advantage of it by cleaning. You know what? The dirt will wait for you. If you actually have someone who is willing to stay with your loved one, or you have your loved one in an adult daycare and you know that they're happy and safe, you need to make sure you do something that provides you with pleasure. You need to do something fun, whether it's go to a theater, go to a movie, visit with your family, visit with friends, go to a park and sit and enjoy nature, go to the church and sit and pray. Something that absolutely brings you up, not cleaning, unless you really like it. But I mean, if you want to clean quickly, that's fine, but you need to use that time to rejuvenate. You give yourself some energy and some pleasure, and doing things that you can't do with your loved one. If you like a museum, something. You need to people say, oh, I don't have time to schedule fun. Well, if you have time to schedule to get your brakes fixed, like you told me, you have time to schedule 2 hours of fun. The one book we recommend the most is probably the 36-Hour Day. That's a very good book. You have to be careful. There's a lot of books out there written by other caregivers. Many of them are very good. Some of them I would not recommend, but you also have to remember they're not written, like the 36-Hour Day is written by a physician and a social worker. The caregiver books are written by one caregiver focusing on their loved one. So it's not giving you all the information, it's giving you more. Some are, the ones that are very good. Some are very specific, and it's not, so that's the one I would start with. And I also would not read that book cover to cover. Absolutely would not read that book cover to cover, because you're going to read that book and then you're going to sit there and you're going to cry because you're going to think that I'm going to go through every one of the problems in this book. No, it's like a cafeteria. You go through the line and you pick certain things. Well, the book has to list every possible behavioral problem you could possibly have. Your loved one will not have them all, and you may not have them for 5 or 10 years. So you read the chapter only about the problem you are dealing with, and then you put the book down. Any other questions? I know if anyone's hungry, I'm the only thing that's holding you up from eating. It's sitting on a chair where Maria was. I don't know where she went, but it's sitting back there. If I didn't bring enough, I can either get some things to Maria. We have some things on communication. We're putting some videos together that will be on our website soon. And you can always email me or call me if you have any other specific questions on communication or anything else. I'd be happy to help. Well, the website's in a bit of redo right now, so you can just have to Google Byrd Alzheimer's Institute, but it's what you see on there is not what's behind the scenes. It's being completely redone. So if you want to email me, that would be fine, or I can give out my direct line. But if you all call me one day, don't expect a return call. But I'll be here through lunch if anybody wants to come up and ask me. But thank you very much.
Isn't she amazing? We're going to have her back next year, right? Yes. Okay. It's amazing to hear her speak. It's amazing to have heard Becky. I got a couple families coming to me and saying, I also have a positive story, a positive outcome about dementia. And I love to hear that because you guys need is light. So I want to always give you a positive conference where you leave with a high note and you leave happy.